So now that we have the textures built out, let's hop into Cinema 4D so we can bake in some shadows. So I'll drag in this ice crater FBX that we exported earlier. And the defaults should be fine here. Now we need to bring in the textures that we exported. And for this, we just need the color. So I'll grab the ice color and the snow color and drag these in. Now for the ice one, I'll drag it on the ice and the snow on the snow. Then I'll select both of these, and under viewport, I'll change the texture size to 1K, just so we're working in the right resolution. And I just noticed there's some stretching on this shard right here. So let's just take a look and see how we could fix this. In the ice shatter object under the UV tag, if we shift double click, we can see our UVs. And I'll just dock this by grabbing this hamburger menu and dragging it over here. So to find this point, I'll switch to point mode and just select both of these here. And you can see over here, we have what looks like a single point. But if we zoom in, you can see there's 2 points here, even though on the object, there's quite a bit of space here versus here, they're basically on top of each other. So if we select one of these and just pull it over, it looks like that fixes that stretching. So with that fixed, we can close this window and get to baking. So we'll select both these objects and go to Object, Bake Material, and then start on the Tag tab. We'll change the file name. And with both of these selected, I'll change the format to a PNG. And let's start with a higher resolution. Let's try 2048 by 2048. That way we just have a little bit of extra resolution to work with. Then in the pixel border, let's change that to 2. And in continue UVs, we'll turn that on. And what this does, if we look into the documentation, it extends all the pixels on these UV edges. So that way, if your texture ends right there, it'll just continue things. So that way it should resolve any issues where you get black edges right on the edge of a polygon. Now under options, all we need to worry about is the color channel. And then in this little extra section down here, we'll turn on illumination and shadows. And now we just need to actually put shadows into the scene by adding a light. So we'll add a point light up here. And in the light options, under the shadow tab, we'll turn on shadows. And we'll use an area shadow. That way it's nice and accurate. Now you can see the area is quite large right here. So under details, we can change the area shape to a sphere and change the size to a much smaller number. Let's say 10 by 10 by 10. You can see here we just have this little gray sphere that's going to be casting the light and the shadows. So by hitting Control R, we can render the scene and see how those shadows are working. And it looks like they are working, but they're a little extreme. We can't see any of the snow. So let's take this light and bring it up just so we're hitting the light out here. And to preview the shadows in real time, let's go to Options and turn on Shadows. That way we can see these longer shadows on the corners, which are maybe not ideal. So let's move this light up a bit, just to shrink these long shadows down. And now again, hitting Control R, we can render and see what it really looks like. And that's looking pretty nice. I think these shadows are still a bit long, so I'll move it up a little bit more. So that looks good to me. Now let's go back to these tags up here. And under preview, let's just click that button. And we can see the shadows on the snow layer getting baked pretty well. Now in the ice shatter, if we just select this one tag and hit preview again, we can see it looks like there is some shadowing happening here as well. So everything should be set. So let's select both of these tags and hit bake. Now to check our work, let's open up where those got rendered out to. And again, we can just drag them directly into the material section down here. And to apply them, we can just drag them on top of the objects, select both of them. Under viewport, we'll change it to 1K. And we'll just take a quick look and make sure everything got rendered out. And to make sure we don't have any lights going on in the scene, let's turn off this light. And then in display, select constant shading, or NE. So overall, this looks pretty good, but there is a few shader errors here, especially on this piece here. Both these sides are looking pretty rough. So let's hop back into the UVs and see if that's the issue. Now to see where the texture is applied, you can import the texture by going to File, Open Texture, and then selecting the texture that we exported earlier. And now you can see how these UV islands overlap with these textures. So with an issue like this, we can select this polygon, zoom into it, and see where these issues are coming from. And it looks like this top edge here is where the issue is. So it looks like if we just move this point up a bit, just to get this extra pixel out of there. And then I'll do the same on this side. Because just this little overlap here is what's stretching all these out, since we have such a small area to work with here. So that looks better on that side. Now this other side's looking really rough too. Let's just grab that edge. And now you can see where that problem is. These pixels are overlapping this UV edge. So we just need to make sure to scoot these in, just so this covers that polygon. And if you're having other issues like that, just look at your UVs and see where these pixels are laying, and then you can just adjust it from there. Or you can rebake and change the settings and try to get a closer match. It's usually just these really steep angles where the UVs might have been a little bit too compressed. So we can close this UV editor and just take one last look at this. Looks like I have one more issue where this whole face here is black. So I'll select the eye shatter, have this selected, and then shift double click back in here. And I don't know why this turned black. So a lazy way to fix this is just double click, grab this whole island and just move it somewhere else where we have texture. The same goes for this guy here. It looks like there's some black shadow here that doesn't make sense. Looks like maybe the UVs were all messed up on this one. So I'll just move it over here and just give it some texture to work with. And I think that's good enough. So I'll close this. And now since we changed the UVs, we need to export these as FBXs again. So I'll delete these tags and these material tags on top, just so we're left with what we need. Then under File, Export, FBX, just make sure Fong Lambert is on, and pretty much everything else is off.